to
Sorry, Paul, you're all set now.
Thanks all. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of the Boston Art Commission. My name is Alexandra Polzotov, and I'm the Public Art Registrar within the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture. In that capacity, I'm also the administrator of the Boston Art Commission. Let's just all take a moment to update our names and pronouns, as well as make sure we're all muted. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting virtually. As a reminder, this was extended until 2026. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Boston Art Commission, the public can join this meeting through telephone and video conferencing. For those of you with us today, this meeting is being recorded and closed captioning is available, which you can access at the bottom of your screen. If you're having trouble locating the button, please chat us for assistance.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, everyone. The Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture and the Boston Art Commission believe that public art is any artwork installed in publicly accessible spaces where they can be experienced by everyone for free. For transparency and community input, artworks proposed for City of Boston property are reviewed and discussed at public meetings at the Boston Art Commission on a regular, usually monthly basis. Working together with the Public Art Team and the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture, the Boston Art Commission is an independent board composed of 2 ex officio and 7 volunteer community members appointed by the mayor. The BAC has exclusive authority to approve and commission artworks intended to be added to the city's collection or be placed on city property. The Public Art Team in the Mayor's Office of Arts and Culture facilitates these meetings and manages all phases, daily operations, and duties related to public art projects cited on or proposed for city property in collaboration with the Art Commission, community members, and colleagues at the City of Boston. Helping to facilitate this meeting are Amber Torres, Public Art Project Manager, Birgit Worster, Senior Public Art Project Manager, and Alexandra Polzotov, Public Art Registrar. And we will add our contact information to the chat. And please feel free to reach out to us with any questions or comments at bac@boston.gov. We are also collaborating always with others, including another public art team member, Emily Rose Navarro, who is the Transformative Art and Monuments Project Coordinator, and consultants Liza Quinones, Josh Crane, and Erin Genia. John, I will hand it to you.
Thanks, Karen. Welcome, everyone. I call this public hearing to order at 4:37 p.m. Today, the Commission is holding its monthly public meeting, which are generally held on the second Tuesday of every month, and we hope you'll continue to join us here. We engage in discussions about public art in Boston in order to foster the creation and collection of artworks that reflect the people, ideas, histories, and futures of Boston, which is located on the traditional homeland of the Massachusetts people and the neighboring Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples. We acknowledge the atrocities committed against Indigenous peoples, all of the communities that have been subsequently harmed, and the ways in which colonialism has created systemic oppression. We recognize the continuing presence of these communities and the Indigenous peoples represented in the city's residents, in addition to those in the diaspora. We also recognize that Boston exists as a result of the forced labor and economic extraction from enslaved African Americans. I'll now take roll call of the commissioners to confirm a quorum. Commissioners, after I say your name, please say here. I begin with Vice Chair James Mason.
Here.
Diana Fernandez-Bibeau.
Here.
Brian Horn.
Here.
I don't believe Nigel is here. Abigail Norman.
Here.
Great, thanks all. We have a quorum. On this slide, you'll see today's agenda, which is also posted publicly on the city's website, boston.gov. We'll now take a few minutes to review the May meeting minutes. Are there any comments or modifications a commissioner would like to make? With that, would any commissioner like to make a motion to accept the May meeting minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the May meeting minutes.
Thanks, Diana. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
After I call your name, commissioners, please say yes if you agree with the motion. James?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. The motion passes. I'll now turn to Karen Goodfellow, who will highlight presentations for public review and give her director's report.
Thanks, John. So we have a number of projects for review today, and they're all here before you. The Stories of Belonging, Portraits of Workers Under Temporary Protective Status. And this is a final design, temporary artwork for City Hall Plaza by the artist Sol Arametti. Sorry, I'm gonna have to get my glasses. And the proponent is Dr. Patricia Campos Medina from the Worker Institute at Cornell University. And we also have the Lubin Family Mural, which is a long-term mural that's here for artist selection, and that's at Roden Park in Dorchester. The proposal is by the artist Tony Pronzi Perez with Artists for Humanity Youth, and it's proposed by Natalie Parsons at Artists for Humanities. We also have some street murals. We have the Columbia Road Mural Project street mural final design for temporary artworks with Ricardo Gomez, and a couple others on the same project, Ayana Mack and Yak Tran Vu, and those are all proposed by the City of Boston's Transportation Department, and we have Xavier Lopez here to present those. We also have a conversation to review In Full Bloom, a long-term sculpture for preliminary design for Copley Square by the artist Tori Fair, and that is being put forward by Amber Torres, a public art project manager in MOAC. And we have some Canvas of Culture projects. So we have Heroes, a long-term mural, which is part of Canvas that's here for accessioning. We've seen that before. It is at the Hugh O'Donnell Elementary School in East Boston. The artwork is by Sophie Tuttle, and the proponent is Paul Zotov, the registrar here. We also have some artist selection projects that we'll be looking at. We have one at the Josiah Quincy Elementary School, another at New Mission High School, one at the Mattahunt Elementary School in Mattapan, and one at the Mildred Avenue K-8 School in Mattapan. And those will all be presented by Liza Quinones of Street Theory. And then we just have some updates. Projects in fabrication. The Public Works Department recently presented plans for the Frederick Douglass Plaza, the future site of the Legacy of Frederick Douglass Memorial, to the Public Improvement Commission. The plans were approved and the construction project can now be advertised and will go out to bid for a construction contract. Project manager Amber Torres attended Mayor Wu's Chinatown Coffee Hour on May 30th at Elliott Norton Square Park, a proposed site for one of the 4 sculptures in the Worker Statues in Chinatown project by Wen T-Sen. Amber also shared information about other upcoming public art projects in Chinatown and Bay Village, including the Coconut Grove Memorial. Fabrication continues on the DeWitt Playground design with metalworks for the shade structures currently being completed by Bob's Welding, with an image shown to the right, and installation of the project by artist Marlon Forrester, and the play team is scheduled for July and August of this summer. We also have a few more projects. Artist Ria Vedro is working on the final fabrication details for Amulet, the inaugural project for City Hall Plaza, revolving sculpture program. The public art project managers are coordinating elements for the sculptural site, including lighting design and signage, with an installation date anticipated for this fall. Speed Pro Imaging has provided vinyl material samples for Destiny Palmer's mural at the Vine Street BCYF. The color and opacities translate perfectly to the printed sample, and the material is durable and able to be cleaned without damage, ensuring that the mural will be easy to maintain. We're waiting a final installation schedule from Speed Pro Imaging and intend to complete this project later this spring. After working closely with City Permitting Department, Call and Response Radiating Safety is officially approved for installation. Project manager Amber Torres recently kicked off a conversation with the artist team, their videographer, and our communications director, Bonnie Rosenbaum, to discuss documentation and installation this spring. In final design, we have the final design and installation plans for Priscilla de Carvalho's sculptures at the Adams Street branch of Boston Public Library in development. Project manager Amber Torres has connected with Todd Mister at the Urban Forestry Division to schedule a site visit to ensure that the distance between the proposed sculpture site and the large tree is sufficient for the long-term health of the tree's root system. And once confirmed, design and installation plans can be finalized. In preliminary design, the Canvas of Culture Carter School artists have developed their mural designs for preliminary design review, and project manager Birgit Worster is working closely with the Carter School team to finalize installation plans and material details to share in their upcoming BAC presentations. And when we are talking about conservation, we have many updates as usual as well. Conservation has officially kicked off for the season. Paul Revere has been given a bath, as well as the judge, with more pieces being taken care of daily. The inclement weather continues, but our conservation crew continues the work around this, and you can see the judge being cleaned there. And that piece is in Nubian Square. The conservation and rehanging of the Healy painting has been nearly completed, originally weighing 1,400 pounds. The monumental conservation of the 16 by 30 foot painting took 16 months from start to finish and included the repair of 4 tiers, each being 3 to 4 feet long, cleaning of the canvas and lining it to prevent further damage from the unstable temperatures, the design of an aluminum stretcher to decrease its weight on the historic structure, and the design of a hand pulling mechanism for its hanging system. We're extremely grateful to the work of Gianfranco Pocobene, McKed Fine Art Handlers, and the National Park Service, and our colleagues at Property Management. Final touches to the painting are being worked on this week. Archives is in the process of sorting through paper files and organizing in order to create a storage and wayfinding structure for the Boston Art Commission records digitization. And we're also in the final process of our onboarding for Bloomberg Connects. With that, back to you, John.
Thanks, Karen. We'll now move on to the items for agenda for review, public testimony, and commission vote. The instructions above tell you how you can participate in today's meeting. If you have technical difficulties, you can ask questions in the chat and a member of staff will help you. When public testimony is requested, you can press the raise your hand icon and we'll call on you. And if you're calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. And James, I'll pass to you.
Our goal is to make this meeting a good experience for all. Please remember to keep your comments on topic, brief, and respectful of others. You can submit longer written testimony to bac@boston.gov. If you are called on, please state your name, title, program, and organization if relevant.
Thanks, James. Typically, we take this moment for any general questions of the public. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to move into the projects because we have so many on the agenda. So next month, we'll come back for any general questions that the public may have. So James, I'll pass it again to you.
Thanks, John. Bear with me as I toggle between screens. Our first project for discussion is Stories of Belonging, Portraits of Workers Under Temporary Protective Status. Amber, I'm passing this off to you.
Thank you. It has been exciting figuring out site selection for Stories of Belonging with Property Management because it's being installed right after the Boston Press Photographers exhibition is de-installed on June 23rd. That's the show that's currently on display at City Hall. The most unique part of this installation is the history between the Boston Press Photographers and the company who manufactures these displays. But I'll hand it to the Worker Institute to tell you more about the project and their installation plans.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Patricia Campos Medina, Dr. Patricia Campos Medina. I am the lead investigator on this research project. It's called Stories of Belonging. This is a community engaged research project sponsored by Cornell Migrations Global Challenge, funded by the Carnegie Mellon Fund. It's a research project that began 5 years ago, cataloging the lives of workers with temporary protected status, that is a immigration status that lasts between 12 to 18 months. These workers, focusing on the Central American community, have lived under TPS status for up to 30 years. The portraits it's a portrait of the workers, and it tells the story of their lives. And it connects to a landing site and a research project that we at Cornell University have been conducting for the last 5 years on the IRB research protocols at Cornell University. The artist that was my partner on the research study from the beginning is an engaged field research artist called Sarah Ramendi, who has done a lot of work in urban areas, specifically in New York City, cataloging and portraying the lives of immigrant workers. She had had a previous relationship with Photoville, who is the organization that I will talk about assembles, designs, and sets up the exhibit for us. But how we chose Sola Merendi is because of her deep expertise in working with immigrant workers in vulnerable communities and being approved through IRB research protocols for an academic institution like Cornell University. So she has been my partner since the project began 5 years ago. She took the portraits and she worked with Photoville to design the exhibit. The exhibit, it is designed and hosted by Photoville. They assemble and they disassemble the exhibit. They hold all the liability insurance for the setup and the protection of the exhibit for any natural or any natural damage or any vandalism damage. This exhibit has traveled to 7 cities: Brooklyn, New York, Houston, Texas, Ithaca, New York, Jersey City, Washington, D.C. It's going to Long Island, and then it's coming here to Boston. And we want to have it right in front of the Boston City Hall. The reason we have the Boston City Hall is because our national partners, it is a community engaged project. We have to have a national partnership with a community organization, and that is the National TPS Alliance that brings together all the 16 countries that have the TPS status. Their affiliate in Boston is the Massachusetts TPS Committee. The leader of the Massachusetts TPS Committee is a leader in Boston, a labor leader in Boston with SEIU, Doris Landaverde, and she is the receiving community organization in Boston. The community TPS leaders live and working in Boston, and she felt that it was important for the exhibit to come to Boston so that the community in Boston learns more about the lives of workers with TPS in Boston and in Massachusetts. This is the project site map. Where it's going to be is 3 cubes, 6 by 6 cubes. They are held together by steel tubes, and the pictures are in vinyl posters that have been designed by Photoville, and they are held together, the structures, by big barrels of water that are heavy. It holds them in place. Like I said already, this exhibit has been the same type of exhibit is already there the previous week. We're just gonna use the same structures to install the vinyl pictures and portraits, so taking advantage of the setup that it will be there the previous week. It's a safe structure, and I will reiterate, Photoville, a non-profit organization that works with artists and photographers to make photography public, is in charge of the setup and has all the liability insurance and its ensemble of this exhibit. This is a rendering of the exhibit in a public park in Washington, D.C. As you can see, it sits in a public space because it's supposed to engage the local community walking by, family members. The picture that you see, the portrait that you see there is Doris Landaverde. She is the leader of the Massachusetts TPS Committee and a member of the National TPS Alliance. And she's a key participant on the research study and on this exhibit that has traveled through 7 cities. The last thing that I would like to say is that at the core of those research projects is not just academia and doing research for writing books, but it's to engage the research with the community. It's a community engagement project. We had focus groups. We had interviews of the members of the National TPS Alliance, the board. We have taken this exhibit to 7 cities. I have lectured with students in college campuses, and I have taken this to workshops in public spaces so that people get to understand what a worker with TPS experience is like, because I truly believe that through photography and through learning about people's stories, we can change art changes the heart, and therefore we can work on changing the mind so that we can change, perhaps get to a solution on the process of changing the lives of these workers that have given 30 years of their life to the United States and yet still don't have a path to citizenship in this country. So this is at the heart of it is a community engaged project to allow the community, in any city that it goes, to understand the lives of workers in their communities. I think there's one more. The installation will be, it's only for a week. It begins Monday, June 23rd, and it ends on Saturday, June 28th, with a community celebration where workers, labor unions, social organizations are invited to participate. It's open to the public, it's free. We're gonna have music and we're gonna have some minor food to make it a community celebration. We're also having a press event on Tuesday to announce the exhibit and to invite elected officials or nonprofits that want to learn more about this community to come. So those are the two public events, and they're open to the public, and they will be right there at the plaza in front of City Hall. City Hall. No equipment is necessary to set up. It's set up by hand, and Photoville has already worked with the city with the mayor, the city office to arrange all the necessary permits for installation and the installation on June 29th. This is a rendering of the tubing, of how the structure is set up and is safe. It's 6x6 with the vinyl portraits big enough so people can walk up to it and read the worker's story. There is a QR code, and they can go to our website and read more and watch a video about the worker. But this structure is sound and it has been safe with all the cities that we have installed it. We have received all the permits for the installation. There's no special equipment needed, and Photoville is the organization that is responsible for the setup, like I said, and the installation, and responsible for all the liability for any damage, natural or vandalism. This is the structural engineering report presented by Photoville to the city of Boston that certifies that the structure is safe to be outside and to withstand rain or any other natural causes. I think there's another one. Maintenance plan, there's no, it is a safe structure to be outdoors. It can be, it's safe to be on the rain, snow. We have had it at any kind of weather. And Photoville carries all the liability. And if it gets vandalized, they can replace it right away. They are responsible for that. And this is the final rendering of the exhibit. And thank you so much for your consideration and for the ability, for allowing me the ability to bring this exhibit to Boston and to engage with the local community of workers who have TPS status and want to make sure that their stories of belonging to Boston and belonging to Massachusetts are heard and are seen by the public in their city. So thank you so much for your consideration.
James, I'll turn it back to you to take any commission comments and take the vote.
Oh, thanks, John. So with that being said, commissioners, does anyone have a question or a comment at this time?
I'd like to make a comment. I'd like to just say that at this very moment, I'm proud that Boston will host this exhibition at a time when TPS workers and immigrants in general are under such vile attack. So thank you so much for this work.
Yeah, thank you.
I had
Thanks. I just,
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry,
Go for it,
Brian.
Diane. Go for it.
Sorry. I was just going to echo Abigail's comments. I think it's a shame. I almost wish we had this for more than just 1 week, because I think it's so salient to this moment, and having this community see themselves represented at City Hall is something that I think is really powerful. So just thank you for the exhibit. Really excited to see it come, and maybe it can make another round in Boston in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then just a question maybe for Amber or Patricia. So my understanding is that the installation is happening on the same structures as the Boston Press Photographers exhibit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and just making sure, like there's been coordination with the Press Photographers Association and this, and just thinking about like people seeing this and thinking it's the other thing or vice versa, that kind of thing. What's that coordination process look like?
Well, they've been coordinating really closely. I've been on a thread with the Boston Press Photographers, Photoville. I believe her name is Callie, Patricia,
Yes.
and
Okay.
property management. So that I can speak to. As far as differentiating between the projects, I think that's a good point that you raise. And Patricia, did you have another response?
Yes, there've been coordination. They have worked each other together in other exhibits before, so they trust each other in the process. We are holding a press event on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. with the Massachusetts TPS committee to invite the public and to announce the exhibit, just to make it known that it is a new exhibit. It's not, it's not the previous one. And then we'll start bringing community groups and inviting people, some unions to come see it. So we're gonna try to announce it that it's a different exhibit and announce the focus of it so that we can attract more people to come by and see it. But when you see the exhibit and you see the portraits, because they're big, they're 6 by 6, people stop because it takes them out of their usual routine walking through a public park. So I don't think people will get confused, but at the same time, we are proactively doing a press conference announcing it with the local community and the local press. So to make sure people know it's a new one, it's a new exhibit on City Hall.
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Patricia. I'm excited for this project too, the fun activation of the plaza.
Actually,
Thank you.
I do have one more. I do have a question. Are we prepared if there's any disruption by ICE or federal law enforcement?
That is a good question, and one of the things that we work with our allies and the local TPS committees is for us to have a plan for protecting each other or for communicating if there is ICE activity on the ground. And we often invite union leaders and people who are citizens and are willing to serve as shields for this community. Now, I remind you, people with TPS are here legally, so they're not undocumented, but their families will be there and their community members will be there. So the responsibility that we take is that we will, if we know that there is known ICE activity in the area, we'll communicate it. They communicate with each other, and they take the precautions that they know how to take as community leaders. But most of the TPS communities here, like I said, has the right to be here, and so they feel safe to be part of this celebration.
Thank you.
So, mhm.
Are there any more comments from the commissioners? How about any comment or questions from the public? I don't hear any. So at that point, would any of the commissioners wish to make a motion?
I make a motion to accept the project Stories of Belonging, Portraits of Workers Under 2PS.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, James.
Thank you. And let's take a vote on that. I'll start with John.
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Abigail,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So the motion carries. Congratulations on this most interesting and important work.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your consideration and for hosting it.
Yes, of course. Thanks, Patricia. Our next project for discussion is the Lubin family mural, and Amber Torres will introduce.
Thank you. Natalie Parsons from Artists for Humanity first reached out in January to learn about our public art proposal process and prepare to present to the Boston Art Commission. We worked closely with AFH and the Parks Department over the spring to review and approve this project and hope to invite AFH to propose at an earlier BAC meeting, but there were concerns about site viability of the proposed wall. Natalie Parsons and her team have been responsive and have worked collaboratively to address our feedback, which also includes obtaining image permissions for a Celtics-themed artwork and using the appropriate materials for this particular site. I will now hand it off to AFH to share more about this project.
Thanks, Amber. Would you like me to share my deck with you all, or will you be sharing on our behalf?
We'll be sharing, and we can navigate the slides.
Great.
Let us know when you want us to advance.
Oh, there we go. Thank you all for having me. My name is Natalie, and I'm the project manager at Artists for Humanity, and I am overseeing this project and proposal that we'll be reviewing today, targeting a mural installation in August or September of this year in Dorchester. Along with me is Alex Benkart, our director of research. But before I get into the agenda, I first want to thank Amber and Paul for all their hard work and support over the past 5 months. They have been truly instrumental in what is my first BAC review. So thank you for having me and for your help. Go to the next slide. This is just a quick look at our agenda for today. I want to start with some background information on Artists for Humanity, or AFH, in case anybody is not familiar. I'll give you an overview of the project, site location, and letters of support. And then I'll have Alex close things off with our community outreach for this project. Go to the next slide. Artists for Humanity harnesses the power of mentorship and paid professional experience to inspire teens and build their future. We are employing teens ages 14 through 18, giving them the opportunity to work on creative projects and develop professional and life skills. Go to the next slide. Teens are paid to work in one of our 7 creative studios that you see listed here. This proposal is focused on our painting studio through an outdoor mural. Go to the next slide. This is a look at our DEIB statement, as well as some of our stats. We have a focus on supporting teens in the BPS systems representing Boston's diverse demographics across every neighborhood in the city of Boston and predominantly from at-risk communities. Through these efforts, we employ over 400 teens between Boston and our New York office, which has been open for 2 years. 88% of our teens come from low-income households, and 90% of our teens identify as teens of color. We have a robust educational support system as part of our program and have been able to secure over $1 million in college scholarships. 100% of our teens graduate from high school, and 100% of our seniors who apply to a college or some sort of alternate pathway are accepted and enrolled. And go to the next slide. Next, I'll move on to the artist. Artists for Humanity is the selected artist for this project. This project is being led by one of our painting mentors, Tony, and I'll share more information on him later. As some background, though, AFH was awarded a grant from the Lubin Family Foundation to work in connection with Speak for the Trees to engage teens and the local community on a public art installation in Dorchester's Ronan Park. The Dorchester community was engaged in this project, which Alex will talk about later. But Artists for Humanity also employs 4 teens who lives in Dorchester. So we had our own kind of micro community who contributed to the initial research and discussion about this project, as well as the design for the mural. You could go to the next slide. Artists for Humanity has been painting murals for almost 35 years now. We have experience on a range of materials and sizes, including shipping containers, windows, sidewalks, and of course, traditional interior surfaces. These are formative experiences for our young artists. They are able to see ideas materialize on a large scale in their own communities, develop confidence in their creative abilities, and recognize their potential to influence positive change through art. There is a link here with mural examples for your viewing after this if you're interested. And you can go to the next slide. Tony is our lead mentor from our paint studio and is also an alum for the program, from the program. For this project, he's worked with a group of teens on the initial concepting and final design, and will be painting alongside them come time for execution. Tony is an extremely thoughtful and talented artist. He uses a combination of drawing, painting, poetry, archiving, installation, and sound to explore some very large and important topics like unpacking generational trauma and memory, relationship investigation, and community building. Examples of his work from his time at AFH, as well as his own body of work, can be found in the appendix, which people can view after this as well. Go to the next slide. Oh, it looks like the appendix was pulled forward. Do you mind going to the location slide? This is Tony's work, very beautiful. Here's a look at the mural location. It will be featured on the wall behind the basketball court of Ronan Park, where the red circle is on the map to the left here. Go to the next slide. The scope of this consists of 2 100 wide by 12 feet high, approximately, painted wall murals. The subject matter aims to celebrate the importance of role of team sports in community building, inspiring young athletes and fostering intergenerational connections. We have and are continuing to work alongside MOAC and the Parks Department to ensure our scope aligns with their initiatives and regulations. And our hope, and the Lubin Foundation's hope, is that this project will serve as a pilot that can be scaled and bring more public art to Boston parks through local engagement. Go to the next slide. Next, I'm going to share some information on the prep and execution of the mural. Before painting can begin, AFH will be hiring a mason to restore the wall's original appearance and ensure its durability. This work will include power washing, new masonry, mortar, and paint. Once the wall has been restored, AFH will paint the mural over the course of 6 to 8 weeks. Sherwin-Williams exterior has been our go-to mural product. It is able to withstand all elements of New England's weather. And given that this mural is exposed to the wind from the bay, this is a top priority for us. The mural will also be finished with an anti-graffiti and UV protective top coat. We are open to exploring alternative paints should the BAC have any recommendations or preferred solutions. In terms of maintenance, it is our belief that murals should age over time. It is part of this art's beauty, but as we continue to work with parks, a maintenance agreement is being drafted to address care outside of the aging process. And go to the next slide, please. This is just a letter of support and intent from the Lubin Foundation, kind of outlining the intent of this project. And then I'll hand it off to Alex, our Director of Research, to discuss the community engagement portion of this project.
Thanks, Natalie. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Bankart. I'm the Director of Research and Evaluation at Artists for Humanity, and I helped with the community engagement and outreach portion of this project. As Natalie's mentioned, one of our top priorities for this project was to make sure that the design process was informed by community needs and values. So we partnered with Speak for the Trees as our key community engagement partner, as well as the Friends of Ronan Park, a volunteer organization who is responsible for stewardship of Ronan Park, as well as Stonewall Sports, a citywide organization that utilizes the park for some of their sports activities. All of these partners invited the community or the Ronan Park community to provide their input by promoting this project to the people on their mailing lists and Facebook groups, which came out to hundreds of people. As our key community engagement partner, Speak for the Trees also coordinated with other community-based organizations in the Fields Corner area, including Viet Aid and Cabral Leadership and Innovation Center. They also led an abutters campaign, sending out flyers and mailers to 52 neighboring residences, as well as conducting some on-site canvassing at Ronan Park. All of this was to invite the community to provide their input through one of 3 surveys and 4 community input sessions that were spread out over the design process. Our surveys were distributed in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, and across the 3 of them collected over 100 responses. The community input sessions, we held 4, had 18 individual adult participants, as well as actually a dozen AFH teen artists from the Fields Corner area. As Natalie mentioned, 4 of those artists were also deeply involved in the concepting and design aspects of the process as well. So if you can advance to the next slide, please. I'd love to show you an example of the questions that we included in our initial community survey, where we really wanted to gain an understanding of people's park usage, some desired improvements for the park, as well as any goals they would have for public artwork. So we combined the results of this survey with the live discussions that we had with community members and AFH teen artists from the area to discover some top priorities. What we realized from this very initial stage of the process was that people identified playing sports and going for a walk as their top park usages, and identified improvements such as shade and gathering space or seating as a key infrastructural improvement that they wanted. And in terms of goals for public artwork, the community wanted something that was accessible, something that was led by community participation, and that celebrated neighborhood identity. And as we explored these concepts, through live discussions, we ultimately discovered led to a mural concept that celebrates the role of sports in nurturing community, which is, I think, the final concept that we are working on right now. I also wanted to share that the results from this initial community survey were also shared with Kiza Ofiesh at the Department of Parks and Recreation. She's a project manager in charge of the renovations in Ronan Park's Upper Terrace. So we've been working with her and sharing what we've learned through this process to contribute to the city's own renovation efforts in the park. That's all from me in this community engagement process. I do want to say thank you again for your consideration and for giving us the time to present this project. We're very excited about this process, deeply involving the community in public art, as well as giving our teens from the Fields Corner area an opportunity to design and execute a mural in their own neighborhood. So Natalie, anything you wanted to add?
No, thank you all so much for listening and appreciate your time.
Natalie and Alex, thank you so much for your presentation. I now open it up to any commissioners who have questions or comments.
I have one question. I think aging was mentioned, and can you talk a bit about what that means, and does it have a connection to deterioration, or can you talk to me about that? Talk to us about that.
Like I mentioned, we'll be applying a protective UV coat that should help with the aging process, but murals exposed to the elements and that are outdoors, they aren't meant to last forever. So there will be some, general wear and tear, and the maintenance agreement will kind of identify who's responsible for what aspects of maintaining that mural. But our intent is to have this last as long as possible.
Thanks.
Any other commissioners? For me, I really appreciate Tony working alongside 4Teens in creating this work, which I know will come to us again once they've have something designed to bring to us. But I really think that fosters deep engagement with public art in this city and a sense of ownership in young people. So I very much appreciate that. And all the community engagement work you did with the surveys. It seems very thorough, and I really appreciate you also passing it along to members of Parks who are also working in that area. I now would open it up to any members of the public who might have a question or comment. Well, hearing none, would any commissioner like to make a motion to approve artist selection for the Lubin family mural?
Make a motion to approve Tony Perez for the Lubin family mural at Ronan Park.
Thanks, Brian. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you, James. And now we may vote. Please say yes, commissioners, if you agree with the motion. James?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Abigail?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. The motion passes. Natalie and Alex, thank you so much and congratulations. I look forward to seeing, we all look forward to seeing what comes next.
Very much.
Thank you.
James, I'll pass it back to you.
Great. Our next project for discussion is the Columbia Road Mural Project. Birgit, I'm passing this off to you.
Thank you, James. The Public Art team first met with the Transportation Department last fall to learn more about the Columbia Road Early Action Plan and the proposed street murals to be included in the scope of the project. The Transportation Department has led the call to artists and artist selection for the 3 street mural sites proposed to enhance the Columbia Road Early Action Initiative. This evening, each artist and site will be presented independently so that the comments can be specifically addressed to each design. These murals are intended to communicate the initial changes in roadway use in advance of the long-term modifications to the surrounding sidewalks and streetscape to be implemented in the future. The Public Art team has provided internal design reviews, including recommendations for bold color and large-scale graphics for long-lasting and legible street graphics. I want to commend Xavier Lopez and the project team for managing the call to artists and the artist selection process within this large-scale transportation project. Thank you, Xavier, and I'll now pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Birgit. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Xavier Lopez. I'm a transportation planner at BTD, Boston Transportation Department, and I'm really pleased to share the final designs for 3 street murals that are part of the Columbia Road Early Action Project. I do want to be respectful of the other presenters' time, so I'll do my best to cover the 3 murals in my allotted time. Next slide. Right, so this project, our early action project, as we're calling it, it's aimed at delivering some near-term safety and beautification improvements at 3 intersections along Columbia Road. Those are Dudley Stoughton Street, Geneva Ave, and Washington Street. This mural project, it's part of a broader effort, a transportation planning project, of course, to redesign a 2.5-mile long corridor does take some time, so we did want to deliver some tangible visual enhancements in the interim. And so that larger effort, it's called the Columbia Road Transportation Action Plan, which is a planning project to redesign Columbia Road from Franklin Park to Moakley Park over at the South Boston waterfront. So Columbia Road's part of the City of Boston's high crash network, meaning that there's a higher rate of crashes that occur on Columbia relative to other city streets. And so, just for context, over the past 5 years, there's been over 650 crashes that have happened. And so on Columbia Road. And so on average, that's about, 1 every 3 days, which really underscores the need for safety improvements, not just for drivers, but for pedestrians as well, given that, there's a lot of pedestrian traffic on this corridor. Next slide. So community engagement and outreach with the public, it's been central to our work ever since this project kicked off back in May of 2024. So we've engaged community members through community walks up and down the corridor, public meetings. We've put up signage. We also have a newsletter that members of the public can subscribe to, and for this early action project, we actually launched a public survey, and so you can see examples here pictured of some of the signage that we've put up at the 3 intersections. On the bottom, you can see one of the community walks that I had led last summer, and then over on the top right is just a screenshot of one of the email blasts that we had sent out to members of the public looking to get feedback on what kind of themes or what kind of artwork members of the public wanted to see brought to Columbia Road. So going back to last summer, I did hold 3 in-person walks along the corridor to ask residents and attendees which intersections felt the most dangerous as a pedestrian and which ones could use some artwork along with some safety improvements. And last summer we also held a public meeting to present some ideas for what kind of safety interventions could be employed at these intersections. And then after we had narrowed down which intersections had the highest need for safety improvements based on both anecdotal evidence as well as crash data, we'd put up signage at the 3 intersections. And at those walks, after that, we had determined, roadway murals would be the output. And so we had sent out an email newsletter blast asking the community what kind of artwork they wanted to see brought to Columbia. And so since the very beginning, residents have consistently expressed an interest in seeing more public art along the corridor, especially pieces that are, vibrant, reflect the neighborhood, are culturally, sensitive, and improve how the intersections kind of look and feel. Next slide. So the murals are going to be installed at 3 intersections again. So Dudley Stoughton Street, Geneva Ave, as well as Washington Street. Each of these streets, each of these sites, these intersections, they have excess roadway space where we'll be able to install some inexpensive but really effective safety interventions coupled with artwork aimed at helping improve pedestrian visibility, calming traffic, and just making Columbia Road safer to cross. Next slide. So in February of 2025, we did issue an open call for artists that was open for a month. We had received 19 applications. There was a selection panel, including Boston Transportation Department Tool Design Group, which is one of our consultants, one of our technical consultants for the Columbia Road Transportation Action Plan, Livable Streets, as well as Dorchester Bay EDC, 2 of our engagement consultants. And we had selected 3 artists based on, the applicants, past experience with public art, specifically roadway murals, their ties to the neighborhood, as well as a commitment to collaboration. Next slide. So these murals will be installed on city-owned roadways that are managed by BTD. We have secured some internal permission for the installation. They have been vetted by several city departments, including the Disabilities Commission, as well as BTD Engineering. We'll also work to coordinate street closures and permits for installation day. Next slide. So the murals, they're being scheduled for installation in July of this year, following today's review and final permitting later this month. We'll be looking to install pavement markings as well as some of the other technical elements that'll serve as a barrier for the mural area. And in the next slide, I'll show kind of what this looks like. But before the artists actually begin painting the mural areas on the roadway, those areas, they will be prepped, power wash and swept by our Public Works Department. And after installation in July, we're looking to have a community celebration to kind of celebrate the completion of the project as well as recognize the artists. Next slide. So as for materials, the artists are going to be using primer, exterior grade paint, as well as stencils, rollers. The murals are going to be within curb extensions like what you see kind of pictured at the top, which is an example image. And the barriers would be a combination of flex posts and what we call armadillos, which is pictured on the bottom right, since we don't want cars driving over these murals and they're going to be placed in an active roadway. So the materials are going to be a combination of, low profile armadillos, like what you see pictured on the bottom, as well as, vertical flex posts that'll be visible to motorists. Next slide. So the designs have been reviewed by BTD Engineering and the Disabilities Commission. Again, we'll power wash each site before installation. The artists that we've selected are going to be responsible for execution, and we are coordinating for a traffic management plan as well as street occupancy permits. Next slide. The murals are going to be receiving a protective surface coating to extend their lifespan, and so we may re-engage artists to assist with touch-ups as needed under the kind of broader Columbia Road project budget. Next slide. All right, so now I'll get into the first intersection, which is going to be the Dudley Stoughton Street intersection, and I'll share the designs for this mural. Next slide. So the artist that we selected for the Dudley Stoughton Street intersection is Ricardo Gomez. He's a Dominican-born, Dorchester-raised graffiti artist whose work highlights Boston's cultural energy and resilience. Next slide. So his mural is going to be installed at the southeast corner of the intersection within a clear corner, and you can see it shaded in purple. And so this is intended to both improve pedestrian visibility, also reduce driver-pedestrian conflicts, as well as shorten the crossing distance for pedestrians. And if you push to the next slide, you can see the design. So here's a rendering of Ricardo's mural, and his concept for this street mural is an illustrative representation of paths taken by people of this community, people who had to travel across the seas, which is why he had included waves on the bottom of the mural, migrating to the U.S. And flourishing. And so, these folks who migrated to this country with them, they brought flavor, and that's why he'd included some greenery and plant life to local communities, and continue to contribute to American culture. And so he'd also included bongo and kind of represented music and arts, all while kind of exercising their freedoms. And so that's why Ricardo had included a bird. So that's the first mural. If we push, I'll go on to the second intersection. Or excuse me, well, I'll pause there and I'll turn it back over to the commissioners.
Thanks for that. So do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments about this particular mural?
I just want to make a quick comment. Super excited, Xavier, to see this come forward. I love this idea of our planning projects not like delivering early wins, and I think doing it in a way that's engaging community and artists, and both addressing safety concerns and bringing art to bear is just like a win on all fronts. So very excited to see this here, and love the congos and the bird and all the sort of Dominican representation that will also be part of the artwork.
Thank you, Diana.
Xavier, a question and a comment. First, similar to Diana, loving the imagery. It's super fun. And it's interesting. I think this is maybe the second or third street mural that we've seen come before the commission within the last year or two. And could be interesting just to check in with the other organizations that have been doing, similar mural work on the streetscape, just to see. I would be curious to see like some of their data about kind of like safety impact and to kind of see what they're learning there. And of course, I'm forgetting the names of the organizations off the top of my head, but folks within MOAC could provide that data. Just the comment and then the question is just thinking about like the pedestrian who's kind of interacting with this work of art. Like how would they discover information about like what they're seeing or interacting with in terms of like the artist, for example, and if that's something you've thought about.
Yeah, great question, and thank you for the comment, Brian. This is something that we've thought about. Something that we've brainstormed, at least internally within our project team, is post-installation, similarly to how we did how we put up signage. Going back to that community engagement slide, I had an example image of some signage that we had put saying that, safer crossings are coming to Columbia Road soon. Post installation, after these murals are actually in the ground, something that we had ideated was having some another round of signage, kind of giving flowers to the artists, right? Maybe perhaps like a QR code where you could scan and learn more about the artist and could see their profile. But on the sign itself, we would kind of spell out or write out on the sign kind of what was the inspiration and the meaning behind the artist's proposed design. So that's something that we've given a good bit of thought to.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. That sounds great.
And I'll just briefly note the bold graphic design that seems appropriate for this purpose. Any other comments from commissioners? Does the general public have any comments or questions? I hear none. A very quiet public today. With that being said, we will look for a commissioner to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the final design for the street mural at Columbia Road.
And a second.
I can second that.
Thank you, commissioners. I will take the vote. Please say yes if you agree. I'll start with John.
Yes.
Diana.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Abigail.
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Yeah, congratulations on this moving forward.
Thank you, James.
Great. And Xavier, now you can move on to the next mural.
Okay. For our second mural, this is going to be Columbia Road at Geneva Ave and Brinsley Street, still in Dorchester. Next slide. So the selected artist for this intersection is Ayana Mack. She's a multidisciplinary artist with deep ties to Dorchester and Mattapan. Her mural, it's going to be a little bit different. Her mural spans across, multiple corners within the Geneva Ave intersection. It's a really wide, gnarly intersection. And so, push to the next slide. So this mural is going to complement, those proposed safety improvements by narrowing what are perceived travel lanes and encouraging slower vehicle speeds. And so we're doing that through curb extensions or clear corners. And so you can see all of the kind of the pockets of the mural area shaded in purple here. Next slide. Oh, there we are. And here is Ayana's design for Geneva Ave. Her intersection design, it uses some bright, vibrant palettes with, illustrated butterflies to kind of symbolize transformation and movement. She's got some shapes and abstract lines, kind of emphasizing fluidity and change. And so the color shifts from, warmer tones to, cool blues, representing the water and sun. And some abstract kind of elements that, reflect deep connection and, our connection with Mother Nature. So this is Ayana's design for Geneva Ave. And push to the next slide.
Thanks so much, Xavier. I'll now open it up to any commissioners who may have questions or comments.
I do have one question. So I love the design and the whole concept of using murals like this for traffic safety is very, very interesting. I have one question about this design. Do you think that the ochre color will withstand the weather and remain vibrant compared to the color of the street and continue to fulfill its goal of safely designating areas for pedestrians?
I'm sorry, Abigail, which color in particular were you referring
That
to?
ochre, the light brown?
The light brown. Yeah, frankly, of course, some wear and tear is expected over time. While these murals, they're temporary, our goal is for them to last for a while, which is why we're adding, physical protection, like those flex posts and the armadillos around the mural areas to kind of help prevent vehicles from driving over them and damaging the artwork. But yes, wear and tear is expected over time, and we are also asking each artist to apply a protective coating over their mural to kind of help extend its lifespan and better withstand the elements. Um, so, yeah.
Thank you.
I have the same.
Xavier,
Oh,
go ahead, James. You go ahead.
I have the same question as Abigail, but it's for the white.
Hmm. Um, yeah, like when we brought our artists under contract, we did make it clear that, they very well could be re-engaged later on to assist with touch-ups if needed. And we do have funding within, our capital budget for this project budget to take care of, maintenance over time. So I hear your concern clearly, James, and we'll definitely take that into consideration.
And Xavier, just to follow up on that, I may have missed it in the presentation. You said these are short term. How long do you expect them to be on view?
Yeah, so I think it's important to note, like, this is a pedestrian safety and traffic calming project. And so we do want to analyze how these interventions are working over time. And so we expect that, these technical elements like the flex posts as well as the armadillos, they're going to remain in the ground for several years before any, permanent materials are installed. And, before we start pouring concrete, it's a pilot project. And so as for the artwork itself, I could see this, this artwork being in the ground for up to 2 years.
And then Xavier, just in terms of the material, and sorry if you talked about this, but like the type of paint that's being used, kind of like appropriate for the surface. Like I know with some of the organizations that had proposed these street murals, the type of material that they were using, it was almost like a heat set, so like they would hit it, with a blowtorch to like really set the material kind of like onto the surface for that durability, kind of appropriate to the lifespan of the project.
Yeah.
And just thinking about like, is this just like regular mural paint or that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I think what you're referring to, Brian, is thermoplastic. That's not what these artists, the 3 selected artists, would be using for these roadway murals. And you'll have to forgive me, I'm not an artist, so I can't speak to the exact, kind of paint that they'll be using, but we have asked them to use an exterior grade paint that is skid resistant because again it is on an active roadway. So yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, and it seems like maybe from the proposals, the hope is that the cars aren't actively driving over the murals themselves. Is that correct?
No,
Or
the
not
cars
correct?
wouldn't, no, they wouldn't be driving over the murals. That's why
Okay.
we're putting, yeah, that's why we're putting the armadillos, those black and white kind of humps on the ground, and then as far as like vertical elements, there's going to be the flex post. So cars will be able to see, as they're approaching an intersection, that they shouldn't be driving over it. It is a forgiving material, and so theoretically, yes, you could drive over it, but you'll feel it. Um, so, but the idea is no, for cars not to drive over this. I'd like to see these murals preserved for as long as possible.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Xavier. Before I open it up to the public, I think some of the questions that we're getting in the previous mural with its like rich, darker, vibrant colors, I think we all understand on the commission that those could withstand this. It's just the lighter color and white that we have some concern about. But I'll open it up to any members of the public for questions or comments you may have. I think there is a question that is there a possibility for the artist to revisit the palette? Given the sort of concerns that we may have had and wanting these to last as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been workshopping with, all three artists over the past several months. They've been great to work with, and they're definitely open to feedback. And so, the paint itself hasn't been procured, and so, we can definitely explore, a different color palette. Yeah, that's definitely on the table for sure.
Any other public questions or comments? I'm curious, commissioners, before somebody makes a motion, do we all share the concern about the durability of the colors remaining vibrant and bright, particularly the lighter colors here, and should we include that in the motion? I'm curious if anyone would like to weigh in on that.
So actually, since I raised the first question, I didn't realize, or I hadn't quite grasped that bollards would physically prevent cars from going over the paint. And so my initial worry was that cars wouldn't recognize the colors and would drive over and violate the purpose of pedestrian safety. My nerves were calmed down by Xavier's.
For me, I will say that I knew that cars wouldn't roll over. It's more people walking over the white. For me, may kind of deteriorate the color. So that's where I'm at with that.
I would say, John, that I would concur with the use of white as a color on a ground surface treatment, but I think the rest of the palette is really beautiful. So I just wonder if there's a way in which the artist can emphasize the butterfly and sort of spatial pattern in a way that, I think still meets the artistic intent. So there may just be like a new replacing the white with another color.
I can do that.
Great. Would any commissioner like to make a motion to approve this final design with that consideration to revisit the white?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this mural at Columbia Road in Geneva, and for the artist to reconsider the use of white within the mural application.
And before I ask for a second, would any members of MOAC staff, if that change is made, could we also stipulate that it can be reviewed and approved by MOAC staff?
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Great. So Diana, are you comfortable with me adding that addendum to your motion? Great. Do I have a second?
Yes, you have a second here.
Thanks, James. After I say your name, Commissioner, please say yes if you agree. James,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Abigail,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So keep on going, Xavier.
All right, last one, guys. Um, for our final mural, we're going to be looking at Washington Street. Thank you. So Tran Vu is going to be managing the installation at this intersection. Tran is a Dorchester raised Vietnamese American focused on storytelling and cultural preservation. Next slide. So her mural is going to be installed at two corners of the Washington Street intersection, again, within clear corners, these clear corner zones kind of reinforcing both pedestrian safety as well as cultural expression. So next slide. So here are the two mural designs for Washington Street. And so here Tran had explored some themes of fruit and flowers in the murals. They're inspired by this vibrant intersection of Vietnamese and Caribbean cultures that are here in Dorchester. And so having grown up surrounded by both, she's always been kind of drawn to the ways of the community of Dorchester and resilience and care. And so Tran had mentioned that they remind her of home. And so these two murals are kind of like a vibrant celebration of that in a way to honor kind of where all these people come from. So this is Tran's mural. Next slide.
Thanks, Xavier. James, I'll pass this one to you.
Thank you, John. Commissioners, does anyone have any comments or questions on this mural?
Can we return to the previous slide, please? Thank you. My first reaction is that in looking at the artworks, they almost look like they're from two different artists, so the first feels pretty separate from, or the bottom feels pretty separate from the top. Just kind of recognizing that, where the first or the one on the top feels a little more almost like clip art-esque, and the one on the bottom feels a little more kind of elegant. So just recognizing those kind of the differences in aesthetic between the top mural and the bottom mural. And then just the other kind of element that jumped out at me and quickly looking at these is the gray kind of middle color in the top mural. To me would almost read as like the surface of the road. So, in terms of like visuals, I think the hope would be, for something like this to be as visual as possible. And maybe I'm kind of reading that incorrectly, or maybe like that is the surface of the road and that's a kind of placeholder color. But just kind of aware of that. So for me, I almost want to see like, like a similar type of treatment on both sides of the street, which I think could kind of like draw somebody across the street in that way. But those were kind of my initial reads of the work.
And just to add to that, Brian, I failed to mention this when we were on this slide. That gray that you see for the top mural, that won't be painted. So that is
okay.
lovely. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
We're just looking at the edges of kind of like this box that's going to be painted in.
So Xavier, I don't know if you have any feedback or kind of responses or feedback or things that you would want to share.
I mean, regarding how the two kind of feel separate, or they don't look like they're done by the same artist.
Yeah, or just kind of like how the artist you spoke a little bit about this, but they feel pretty different to me. And wondering if that kind of came up in your conversations with the artist at all. So my question is like, why do they feel different?
Um, well, I mean, I think it's important to note that this is, just a rendering, and so it very well will look and feel different after installation. I guess if I can't say why or that it did come up, like why they're two very distinct renderings, but Brian, if you or other commissioners have, feedback that I could perhaps give to the artist, to kind of make them look like they were done by the same artist, I'd be happy to take them back. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, that would maybe open it up to other commissioners to see if there's any other, thoughts there. But the previous design that we saw, it felt pretty cohesive across the, different proposed renderings, and this just feels a little different. But I'll turn it over to other commissioners.
I'll jump in, and I agree with you, Brian, in terms of it does look like two different artists are representing work here. So that's one thing. And I'm also looking at the detail, this shadow and highlight. So it goes beyond the graphic designs that we've seen to the previous murals. And I'm not saying this has to be the same, but I'm just wondering on the road, what would you see, and do you lose some of that detail that we have here as well? So I would urge perhaps rethinking which one of these is the one and kind of translate it to both sides. But that's just my thinking, and I'll leave it to others to chime in.
I actually feel like it's not a bad thing to have two very different images by this, and they're across a very big, busy road. They're both very vibrant and bright. And if they were made by two different artists, I don't think that we would feel that there was anything wrong with having them be different as they are.
If I could quickly jump in, after hearing, some of the commissioners' comments, I can see why it may be perceived that it's, it would be done by two different, artists. And I don't want to kind of speak for Tran, but I think what came across as we were workshopping and as she explained what was the inspiration behind, these two intersection murals is she wanted to find a way to kind of blend both, Vietnamese and Asian as well as Caribbean cultures that are represented here in Dorchester, which, of course, has a lot of flavor and is made up of a lot of different cultures. And so I think that was, Tran's attempt in these two kind of clear corners.
Thanks, Xavier. We actually just had a comment, an interesting comment from Elaine from the public, who said, could you take, let's say, the yellow from the lower panel as the background to the upper panel to sort of marry those in some ways, that some of those colors. And when we open it up to the public, Elaine, if you'd like to share your thoughts again, I would be happy for you to. I think one thing looking at the mural for me is sort of the very intricate detail. These are both pretty intricate, and in the case of the bottom mural, somewhat delicate designs with a lot of small, fine features. And I'm curious for any other commissioners, like when these are translated on the street, if that detail can be maintained, sort of unlike when you're putting a mural on the wall. I know that sort of street painting can be a bit different in this case. So I'm curious if any other commissioners have any questions or curiosities about setting the artist up for success, and whether these like very detailed renderings and delicate renderings will succeed when painted on the road.
John, I believe that's what I had inferred when I was talking about the graphic nature of the previous ones, and this is more realistic, and they're beautiful. So it's pretty much, does it translate to the ground or the road as opposed to on a wall? That's what I was thinking as well.
Well, for that question, I wonder whether Liza would be willing to weigh in.
Liza, are you at your computer? Yes, there she is.
I'm here. I thought you said my name. I just wasn't quite sure I heard you correctly.
Abigail just wanted to know if your expertise, if you had any thoughts.
In reference to the delicateness of the imagery for the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
and like how it's different to paint on the street as opposed to a wall.
Sorry, I'm just kind of soaking it all in. I do think that the styles of each of the pieces are pretty distinct and really different. The fruit and the images of the fruit do feel very flat and graphic, and the images of the flowers do present some delicacies to it. Whether technically it can get painted in both ways, I think it could. I think it's more of a question of how durable and how long lasting the more delicately painted, fauna like flora would, how that would last over time.
Thanks, Liza. Appreciate you weighing in.
Of course.
Before I open it up to the public, any other commissioner questions or comments? Would any members of the public like to make a question or comment? Elaine, you specified that you said possibly the green or yellow could be used from the bottom picture for the top gray background to tie them together, or the green for top backdrop. So very much appreciate that comment.
And we also got a couple comments in the Q&A. I don't know if you see that. They're not questions.
I can't see that.
Okay, so an anonymous attendee shared that regarding the colors, they're new to understanding mural paint, but their understanding is that it has more to do with the actual pigment used in the paint versus the color in itself, but could be wrong. From their understanding, lighter colors also just tend to require more layers, so it's something to think about. It might be okay. And then someone said, I agree, it seems to be fine to have two different styles, just like we can write for different audiences, different types of art can appeal to different audiences. Anyway, they're not questions, but as we get used to working webinar format, just wanted to share those.
For those members of the public who made those comments, thank you very much. Your comments are much appreciated. Commissioners, I'm curious, as these designs stand, if you are, and Sheila says that at the true size, the delicate stems will be quite large. Point well taken. Thank you for that, Sheila. Commissioners, do you have any concerns if we take this to a vote as it exists for final design?
I like it as a final design, and maybe the comments could just be provided as commentary rather than a direction.
Sure. Any other commissioners?
I think
Well,
I
with that,
sorry, I agree with Abigail. I was just going to say, just like with the addition of like the artists, taking into consideration the feedback that they receive during the commission meeting.
I worry, do we need to put that feedback into the motion, which might be complicated? But would any commissioner like to make a motion?
I'm happy to make a motion to accept the Columbia Road at Washington Street proposal for a street mural by Tran Vu. And I would not include the commentary in the motion. I would just provide it to Xavier, and then if he wishes, he could pass that along to the artist.
Do I have a second? Is this a hesitation of concern?
Oh, I'm sorry. I said I would second it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that, Diana.
I'm
so
sorry.
sorry. After I say your name, Commissioner, please say yes if you agree with the motion. James?
Yeah, I can't qualify my yes or my no, so I will say yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Brian?
A no on this one.
Okay. Abigail?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. So the motion passes. Xavier, I know we passed with final design, but if you would like to share with Tran some of our thoughts, we would very much appreciate that. But the designs are beautiful, and I'm very curious, and I think we all are, to see how they may translate to the street.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate your time and consideration. I, along with the artists, are really excited about the opportunity to bring some vibrant, community-inspired murals to Columbia. And so I'll be happy to take back your comments to the artists when I meet with them next week. So thank you all for your time.
Thanks so much, Xavier. Our next project for discussion is In Full Bloom, and Amber Torres will introduce.
Thank you. I began working with Tori Fair last fall on the series of sculptures being presented today. Preliminary designs were due for internal public art team review in early May, and in recent weeks, the public art team has worked with Tori on design revisions that included expanding beyond sunflowers to include coneflowers and rutabaga flowers, refining the texture of the sculpture for safety purposes, and designing the pieces in a way that prevents vandalism, theft, and damage. Our team is giving feedback on translating Tori's artwork to be durable in the public realm and would be particularly interested in the BAC's insight. The Copley Square Public Art Project emerged from the One Boston Resilience Project, a citywide community engagement process to envision our collective strength after violence, as illuminated by the Boston Marathon bombings. Through the OBRP process, the city considered ways to recognize the impact of violence and loss in our lives and how we build resilience, not just as individuals, but as a community. It was led by the public art team, Archipelago Strategies Group, with the support of the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, and an advisory committee appointed by the mayor. OBRP consisted of listening sessions in Back Bay, Jamaica Plain, East Boston, and Dorchester, community meetings, activities in multiple languages, and online outreach. Next slide. What we learned was that residents want an artwork to be a welcoming space for communal gathering, to be a space for individual reflection, to incorporate trees and green space, to acknowledge loss, and to evoke emotions of empathy and unity. Next slide. This project is funded through the Percent for Art Fund in association with the capital renovation of Copley Square Park. These improvements will preserve existing connections, restore the fountain, and add ample shade with the addition of a new structure called the Raised Grove, which is also the site of Tori's artwork. Park construction is slated for completion later this year, and we're working closely with the Parks Department to install these artworks within the construction timeline. Next slide. In order to develop the call to artists, MOAC worked with artist Matthew Hensman as a consultant to identify 4 opportunities for public art: light projections, a series of small sculptures, poetry, and ground plane interventions in the pavers and walkways. The goal is for the artworks to seamlessly integrate into the park. Our themes are community solidarity, empathy, and acknowledgement of loss. Today, the first of 4 Copley Square public art projects is being presented. But in the coming months, we plan to present Adam Frank's light projections, Jessica Grant and Diana Weissman's ground plane interventions in the pavers and walkways, and the late Daniela Gross George's engraved poem, How Many Kinds of Love. Next slide. I first presented this project for artist selection in 2023, and after navigating contracting delays in early 2024, this RFP officially opened May 2024. Artist selection was finalized by the end of July. Contracting took place over the summer, and by September 2024, we had our official kickoff meeting. Next slide. Before I introduce Tori, I want to make sure to talk about our trauma-informed engagement strategy. We've invited the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute back to help engage victims and survivors of violence citywide and encourage attendance at events and public meetings like tonight. We began working with the Peace Institute's artist in residence, Ruth K. Henry, and our communications team last fall on the project announcement, including language for our webpage, templates for social media, and a carefully curated email listserv. We developed our engagement plans up until the sudden passing of commissioned poet Danielle LaGrosse Georges in February 2025. In March 2025, we decided to postpone planned engagement workshops and events in order to re-strategize. We recently resumed engagement planning and preparation for today's BAC meeting and the official project launch. Next slide. Tori Fair lives and works in the Boston area. She has participated in numerous solo exhibitions, group exhibition, and has been featured in publications such as the New York Times and the Boston Globe. She received her bachelor's from Harvard University and her MFA from the Massachusetts College of Art. Tori is also professor of sculpture at Brandeis University in Waltham. I'm delighted at this time to hand it over to Tori to share more about her proposed sculpture series for Copley Square Park titled In Full Bloom.
Thank you for the introduction, Amber. Working with flowers has been a long-lasting theme in my work. Taking the fragile and fragrant beauty of a bloom and casting it in industrial materials transforms the flower, manifesting both glamour and grit. From the more ephemeral presence of a bloom, the flowers take on a rugged yet an approachable presence when transformed into sculptures. They embody perseverance and resilience, qualities we crave in these post-pandemic years. In Full Bloom is an overall gesture of remembrance and gratitude for the public at Copley Square Park. Installed on the perimeter of the raised grove, each sculpture is cast from flowers that have been grown and harvested by gardeners in and around the Boston area, ranging from the Fenway Victory Gardens to personal gardens to some of the surrounding urban farms. The flowers act both as memories and as messengers. Transformed when cast in bronze and then nickel-plated, the flowers are in full bloom for all seasons. In the process of casting, the flowers are made more robust and durable, which in turn speaks to themes of perseverance, resilience, and empathy. Next. Thank you. This is an overview of the Sasaki site design of the raised grove. Proposed are 5 sites and a total of 15 flowers in various groupings. Each sculpture grouping is integrated with a Sasaki bench design, and each sculpture is anchored with threaded stainless steel rods in several places for security. Next. We will begin here in the plaza, looking at the first site of 5 flowers on a bench by the ramp. I've gravitated toward a mixture of several different types of sunflowers and a few cone flowers and rudbeckia. These flowers are commonly known and recognized and have a personality and iconic feel. There is lots of overlap and strength in this grouping, where there will be 9 rods anchoring the sculpture to the bench and curb with epoxy. Next. Moving clockwise, toward the intersection of where Dartmouth and Boylston is, here's a smaller flower moment sited to conform to the curb. All the flowers, leaves, and stems will be attached in several points, anchored with rods and epoxy to secure into the concrete. And for this one flower, there'll be 6 different places for that security. Next. Here are 2 nearby at a diagonal with plenty of room to sit and engage with the flowers that will be fabricated with softened edges. The concrete changes with rainy days, but the nickel finish is uplifting even on a rainy day. The nickel finish helps to protect the bronze from corrosion and is very little maintenance aside from cleaning the sculptures annually. Wax is an option, but not necessarily needed. Each sculpture is scaled to fit whole when dipped into the nickel plating bath to ensure full coverage. Next. This site is another 5 grouping, and the backdrop is a rendering of the garden that is submerged in the raised grove. Thanks. And then one more. The last two on this, these are the last two flowers that are on the side of the fountain in the church. Next. All the 5 sculpture groupings convey gestures that embody notions of empathy and solidarity for the people who visit Copley Square Park. And again, all the flowers in the sculptures have been grown by people in the Boston area, cast in full bloom to be enjoyed in full bloom all year long. Next. On the left is a smaller test of the nickel finish, and on the right is an example of softening the flower's edges so they are welcoming to touch. Next. Some notes on the design process. First, the flowers are captured in molds with plaster and rubber. I've gravitated toward these flowers because they can be split in 2 halves in the casting process. Also, the sunflower family provides so many different variations that provide sculptural robust elements that convey personalities that people identify with. Next. Then I fill the molds with a mixture of silicone and dirt in order to thicken up the flowers, leaves, and stems to make them viable for casting again. I worked with a design engineer who came to the second site visit to then fabricate a replica of the dimensions of the benches to complete the flower designs in my studio. This will ensure that the connections to the benches are flush. Next. When I bring the sculpture groupings to the foundry, we will be casting the foundries using sand-packed molds. The stems and leaves will be cast first in wax to give us the opportunity to make sure that they are softened and have a lot of overlapping parts for strength and no finger traps. The overlapping stems and leaves and flowers in combination with strategically placed rods to secure the entire sculpture to the bench will prevent the possibility of bending or vandalizing the sculpture. Molds and the original flowers can be archived and kept in the unfortunate scenario that a component of a piece does need to be replaced. Next. This is a look at the budget. The contract payment was received fall 2024 and was used to subsidize the archive of flower molds that I'm working from, both the flowers, the leaves, and the stems. Some of this was used to collaborate with a design engineer and the foundry for proof of process, and the artist fee is spread out over each payment. If approved, the preliminary design payment will begin payments to the foundry, who will start to make new molds for the bronze casting. We break apart each groupings of the flowers into stems and leaves and flowers. And then the final design and mid-fabrication check-in will also mostly go to the foundry, because the foundry is also doing the installation and is experienced with installing public works, and even has a few projects they have installed nearby the Copley Square. So the costs are being closely tracked throughout the process. Thank you.
And last but not least, signage for In Full Bloom will be designed and fabricated through our didactic signage for the Public Art Collection pilot program. As a part of this pilot, we will create high-quality temporary signage in the interim as we develop standards for long-term signage. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Amber. And Tori, thank you so much for your presentation.
Oh, thank you.
I now open it up to any commissioners with questions or comments.
Well, my first question, my statement is the flowers are beautiful and delicate looking. So for me, Tori, there's a lot of space that rise up off of the surface, and I'm just wondering, I know that there are different points secured, but they still look a bit delicate to me. And for the time that they're going to be there, I'm just wondering about them being damaged or broken or snapped or in some way. So can you talk about how secure they are?
Yeah, when I started to cast flowers, it was a big challenge to go from something so fragile into something more durable. And that's partly why I love the bigger flowers, is because I figured out a way with a mixture of silicone and dirt to cast the flowers initially to really thicken up it thickens up the whole, the thin parts become, much thicker. And so that's why the foundry and I have developed this process together, because then when they make another mold, so there's 2 molds in this process, one to thicken up and make it more robust, and then the other one to turn it into bronze. So they really are, they become much more rugged and durable in the process. And there's a lot of ways in which the leaves are supporting and connecting. The leaves also thicken up quite a bit in this process. And so they become kind of like fences in that they're a lot of different parts welded together to increase the strength.
Thanks. Thank you.
I'm curious, Tori, I have some similar concerns with the potential delicacy of sort of each of these arrangements. And I'm curious, I know you've been casting flowers as part of your art, but have they ever been placed sort of in the public realm for a long period of time? Like, have you had experience with these being out sort of and available to the public to interact with?
No, I've never had a budget to cast flowers like this, which is an amazing opportunity. And why I applied is because I had figured out this system with this foundry and had some tests. So with a lot of conversations with them and their experience installing a lot of public art, we feel very good about the strength.
I do want to jump in and add that we went through 2 rounds of feedback, actually. There was an initial round in April and then also a semifinal one in May. So Tori received this feedback early in the first round of reviews, and that's why she was able to address how the pieces overlap and are more connected and more sturdy in response to that feedback. And we do have another opportunity with final design to show our fabrication and installation plans in depth to prove that durability. Just wanted to add that context.
Hey, Kimber, I want to jump in and say, Tori, I think part of the reason we wanted this to go forward today is so we could ensure that we're talking about this. I know that we had given you this feedback before. I will say I still have concerns. And so I do want to have it in the public realm so we can really talk about that. And, that kids will be playing on this. And, like we want to make sure needles can't be tucked away anywhere and all those sort of things. So I think while we did go through those internal back and forth, like having this conversation so much about a public piece, we thought it was really important while we're still in this phase to do that. But Amber's correct, we have been giving this feedback, but because we are really excited to be working with artists like Tori who are shifting from a gallery practice to the public realm, I think it's always a bit of experimentation.
And
Yeah,
Tori, just to follow on, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I do think like the photographs are one thing, but when you see the sculptures in there was a slide of them that they looked black. When I first make the mold, that's a mixture of silicone and dirt here, you can really get the sense that they're thicker and it's hard to see that they're attached to a lot of different places here, but they really do have a robust feeling that I love the way the flowers become kind of more rugged in this translation. And then again, the translation into bronze, I think, will make them even, stronger and bring a little more glam to Copley as well.
Is it possible for us to see these molds?
Yeah, I mean, I have the molds are here, and then the positives, that I make with the silicone and the dirt are in my studio.
Could you ever share those? Yeah, Diana. We've had people bring a sample and we've taken it around before.
It may be helpful, I think, just as we think about the design of some of these elements. And I think I'm thinking specifically, I have 3 little kids, so just imagining their little fingers in all these spaces and, they're so beautiful and delicate, but I also don't want them to be a hazard, as people are kind of engaging with them in ways that may be unexpected. So it may be helpful, I think, to see the scale and to understand. It's hard to capture that from the renderings because of the lightness of the nickel, how much gap is there actually in between, the bench and the sculptural element itself. And it's hard to discern that, I think, from some of these images. So maybe seeing some of the molds or a model could be really helpful.
Yeah, they're really not delicate, but I appreciate that they look that way, but their presence is much more physical.
I think it's just that the public realm is a lot rougher than anyone would expect. And we've
Yeah.
seen, we see pieces break off other pieces, other artworks, and get taken, swords get taken, fingers get taken. So they may be durable for regular wear, but not necessarily for public use.
And Tori, that is, like one of our considerations or kind of curatorial considerations is really like a durability of the project that's appropriate to the intended lifespan, and I think for this type of project where we're at that kind of long-term timeline, which is, like 5 years, 20 years, like our hope is that in like 50 years, this piece,
Yeah.
Is also kind of presented in like the way that you've envisioned it and that we've approved it. So, I think that's kind of maybe where some of our concerns are coming up, but, just, like they're on the bench, right? Where a bench is like a highly used surface. And so the question of like, if a skateboarder, was like hit one of these, like would the piece itself stand up to like that type of force? I think those are the kind of things that like we think about for these long-term projects specifically because there is such an investment, in you as the artist and in the piece itself. So I guess maybe one of my questions would be, just kind of like consideration of placement. If you've, I think you've kind of presented them in a pretty cohesive way, all on that bench format. But if there's been any other considerations of like, I don't know, like changing the location or placement of the works of art so that they're not quite in such a highly active space. And it's kind of hard because like we want the work to be active and interacted with, but also we want it to be safe too, both for the work and for the visitor.
Yeah, Copley's a very busy site. I think the impulse to integrate them with the benches is because the concrete can really be tied into, whereas the plaza and the grass have so many multi-purposes. This way, the sculptures are integrated into how people can sit and be with them. The benches are quite large. They're almost 24 inches, so there's a lot of room there.
Any other commissioners? I'm curious to put an idea out there and see how the other commissioners feel about this. I think it's such a beautiful design, Tori. I really think it's so elegant and such a like just wonderful way to integrate art into this newly designed Copley Square. I'm curious if it's possible for you and the MOAC team to have a conversation with a conservator, perhaps even our conservation doctor at Daedalus, to learn a bit more about the durability of the materials and the casting that you're doing. And in addition, if it's possible for you to bring in some of the molds for members of the commission to take a look at. I open that up to the commission as a possibility. Would you all feel more comfortable in approving design if we both had some sort of report from the conservator and were able to look at these molds?
I think for me, it's maybe just more like a user testing consideration, of like, and I don't know, Tori, if you've gone down this route or if you've done this already, but like, demonstrating that like the piece will hold up to a certain amount of force or, those considerations. I think there are other concerns, maybe just about like safety or to Diana's consideration of like things kind of finding themselves into the crevices, which for me also, a little bit of a concern, but just that kind of like the durability of the material itself consideration, and I don't know if you've considered like testing of the materials or like actually trying to hit it or those kind of which I think would actually be really helpful for you to kind of go through that process. I don't know how we would phrase that, but for me, a consideration there.
I wonder, Brian, I hear your point, but I just, it would be nice to have a prototype, but Tori, are you able to cast yet, sort of without moving through this process, just because of the expense of it?
Well, I think that the foundry is ready to go. With the preliminary design, I would be releasing a payment to them. But I certainly could bring you the silicone and dirt, to give you a sense of the thickness of the flowers. And the foundry I'm using, installed the Boston Marathon Bombing Memorial and the Edgar Allan Poe. So they have a lot of experience, and like the bronze is strong. That's why we use it for public art. And the nickel finish only makes it, I think, even, it prevents it from corroding. So I feel really confident about these objects' strength. And the epoxy that we're using is made for this kind of anchoring. It'll be 3.5 inches in these several points. So you can't bend it anywhere. But and the softening is really helps. Like that one slide where the flower is softened a little bit helps to understand that I want people to be able to touch and explore the pieces. But I'd love to talk to the conservator. I'd love to do anything to help explore the best scenario.
Any other commissioners have thoughts on that? For me, I really do like the design of it, but I don't yet feel confident enough in these objects in the public realm to be able to take a vote on this. That's just my one commissioner opinion. And so I'm just curious to know if other commissioners feel similarly, if we should sort of have the conversation with the conservator and see these molds before we take a vote on preliminary design, or if commissioners are comfortable moving forward sort of as is.
I feel that there's enough reservation on the part of both commissioners and Karen and the staff and Tori, you seem willing, and hi, Tori, by the way. I know we haven't seen each other for decades. It's so nice to see you. But Tori, you seem willing to engage in those conversations. And I know that if there's a timeline with the foundry and so on and the money, I'm sure that Karen and the staff will be respectful of that. So I would recommend just taking those extra steps.
Abigail, thank you. Commissioners, others of you agree with this potential next step?
Yes,
I support that.
Yeah, I do as well, because that's a well-traveled area, particularly around holidays, the Boston Marathon. You get lots of crowds of folks there, and some not so, I don't want to say not pleasant, but rowdy at times. So just wanted to be cognizant that whatever we put there is going to remain there and be unbroken.
And
Thanks,
is it
commissioners.
just for clarity then, is it really about casting it in bronze, or is it about the connection to the concrete?
To speak for myself, it's about, for me at least, the sort of delicacy of the design. For example, you have, I think, a single, or maybe it's a duet of flowers, and the stem actually rises up a bit. And I worry that because it's not flush to the concrete, that
It will be flush to the concrete. If you're seeing a shadow, yes, I mean, though it will be flush to the concrete. The stems, there'll be no way to pry up. They'll be in the rod design. I was at the foundry, like all these will be pegged at the end of the stem in all of those, and then further up. So there'll be no way to grab those stems.
I still think within sort of the nature of these objects as you're casting them, I think we're just doing our due diligence to make sure that your artwork and this project, when accepted into the collection, is made for sustained durability to last, as Brian was saying, 50 to 100 years. So I think from our standpoint, from how we're looking at this, the project that you've created, I think, is beautiful, but I think we just want to take these extra steps so that we feel comfortable and confident moving forward in this vote of preliminary design. So I suggest that Tori and members of the MOAC team meet with the Daedalus conservationist, and also if we could have a chance to look at the molds and take a look at them before we can vote on preliminary design. So in that case, we would sort of deny without prejudice, again, not because of the artistic intent, but just so we can do our due diligence to feel comfortable in taking this vote. And I just want to make sure other commissioners agree with that.
Was that a motion?
No, no, I don't think we need to take a motion on
No.
that. I'm just confirming, and then we can move on.
Yes, and John, I would just maybe we could specify that if the chair or the vice chair could take a look. I don't know if it's necessary for all the commissioners to come take a look at the.
I totally understand, Abigail. I think when those are delivered, Karen or Paula, whomever, can email all of us, and then we can make appointments as needed. So yeah, not all of us need to go and visit it, but as many as possible, I think, would be nice. So, Tori, I so appreciate your time and the energy and effort that you've put into this. I think we're all excited to see what comes next. And thank you for allowing us to sort of continue this research into this project. And I can say I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes next out of this. So thank you for your understanding. And I'm really excited to see this sort of realized publicly once we figure out all the details and learn more about the project. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Hi, commissioners. I do know that we are over time today, as it's 6:37, and I know that some of us have to run. We have a sessioning and some site selection for Canvas of Culture. How would we like to proceed?
So I regret that I do need to leave really now. So if there's enough of a quorum for votes to take place after my departure, I'm fine with that.
No, Abigail, it's understandable that you may need to leave. Can I ask one quick question? Are any of these projects, are there pending deadlines sort of putting this project in jeopardy?
I think, sorry.
Yeah, I think some of them are pressing. I think we'll still have a quorum, won't we? Sorry, I'm doing a
1,
head
2,
count.
3, 4. No,
No, we won't.
there will only be 4 of us.
1, 2, 3, 4. Abigail, this is a hard stop right now. Oh, you're muted, sorry.
I do need to be somewhere. I have maybe 3 minutes.
Well, it seems to me we should likely adjourn this meeting then and revisit these. I'm curious, commissioners, if some of these projects need additional time, would it be possible to email about a shorter BAC meeting to go over these projects that we didn't get to today. Hopefully that doesn't take as much time as a standard meeting. I asked MOAC staff if that would be a possibility, and BAC commissioners if you would be open to that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah,
So
we can have a
for
special meeting.
Karen and Paul, if like we can have a meeting just for these Campus of Culture projects and the accessioning,
Okay.
that would be fantastic. And Abigail, so that we're not keeping you any longer, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'm happy to make that motion to adjourn this meeting.
Thanks so much, Abigail. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Diana. Say yes after I say your name if you agree. James,
Yes.
Diana,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Abigail,
Yes.
and I move to adjourn as well. Thank you all so much. I felt like this was a really great meeting. So many interesting projects. Thank you all for your feedback and being here. And of course, to members of the public, thank you for being here as well. See you next time.